Welcome everyone and happy Friday. My name is Igor Akpovo. I am the manager of professional development for online learning. This is the first brown bag of for the fall semester, and as of this year, this is the third year we've started the brown bag, and over the last 3 years, we've had many success. We've had several faculty who led sessions, and we haven't really, these sessions have not been successful without you faculty who support us and who are always here or attend our events. And so if you are here for the first time today, I would like to welcome you. We're happy you are here. And if you are not the first time, it's not the first time you are here for the second time or the millionth time. We appreciate you. Thank you. We couldn't have done this without you. Today we have a great session. We have a panel. And before I have the panelists introduce themselves, I'm going to ask two of my, I recognize that we have, like I said, a lot to unpack today. We only have 1 hour. And I'm only going to have Dr. Johnston and Jason and Jostiel to say a few words. And then I'm going to just recognize my colleagues. And after that, I'm going to hand it over to, I'm going to ask the leaders to introduce themselves, and each of them has 10 minutes kind of to answer questions that we provided to them ahead of time. And so, Dr. Jason Johnston, would you like to say a few words?
Sure thing. We're just so glad to see all of you as we kick off the fall, and we are here to support you in your online learning and teaching. And so make sure you reach out if there's anything we can do for you. And thank you, Igor, for all the work that you put into to make these events happen.
Thank you, Dr. Johnston. Josh?
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We know it's a really busy time, but we are really excited about this session. A huge thank you to our panelists who are willing to share their wisdom as we kick off the fall semester. And so I know I'm anticipate learning a lot. And so we just appreciate everyone being here. And thank you to Igor for putting this together.
Thank you. I didn't mean to skip any of my other colleagues. I know Jennifer Gramling is here, Director of Online Programs. Our new instructional designers, Dr. David Desarmier and Everett, and our GRAs. I'm sorry I can't see everyone right now, but again, I didn't mean to skip anybody. And so what I would like to do for moving forward is I'm going to ask the participant to use the chat to tell us about who they are, department they're from, and really something that they're hoping to get from this session. So the goal is to create interaction in the chat. And so next I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves just briefly. So the first one here is Amy Billone.
Hi, my name is Amy Billone. I'm a professor in the English department. I've been teaching there since 2001 at UTK, and I've even lost track of how many asynchronous classes I've taught now, maybe 12 or 14, also for the IDP program, one on fairy tales and one on fantasy to cyberspace that I'll be talking about today. Thank you.
Thanks. Sally?
Hi, I am Sally Harris, also from the English department. I have been teaching hybrid classes since 2007 and fully online classes since about 2015. I've got about 3 or 4 different classes online right now, mostly writing and literature classes. So I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to see how many people are here. This is way cool.
Thanks, Sally. Lee Murphy. Lee Murphy, probably not here yet. So let's see, Alex Feldt.
I'm Alex Feldt. I'm a distinguished lecturer in the philosophy department. I have one and only one online class that I do, but I've been doing it for quite a while now. I teach it in both the condensed, like 4.5-week summer version and the full semester as part of the online distance education program in the College of Arts and Sciences. And so, yeah, looking forward to it.
Thank you, Alex. Like I was saying earlier, if you are just joining us, please use the chat. I'm talking about the participant to tell us who you are, your department, and what you're hoping to get from this session. So everybody knows this
Igor,
session.
Hey, Igor,
Yes.
sorry. Lee lost her connection and it looks like she's back. So do we want her to introduce?
Oh, okay. Sorry, Lee. Lee, please.
I'm so sorry. I keep on. I'm sorry. Sorry. Hi everybody. I missed everyone else's introduction, so I'm not sure what we're supposed to say other than I'm Lee Murphy and I'm from the Department of Nutrition, and I teach the introductory nutrition course there that is of course asynchronous, and it's been going on since like 2012 or 11, I think. So it's been over 10 years. Crazy. It's hard to believe it's been that long. So I'm so excited to be here and talk with everyone about our experiences. And it's also neat that we all do the same thing, but differently. So that's one of the beautiful things that we'll be able to share today.
Thanks, Lee. And so what I was saying that this session is, as you know, is being recorded, and the recording will be available next week on our website, along with previous recordings. For the session, if you have questions, feel free to unmute yourself or use the chat. And so, like I said, each presenter has about 10 minutes. Once each person is done talking, we are going to let them answer 1 or 2 questions to allow the other person to start over, and then they are going to continue answering questions in the chat. So now I am going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Yes, okay, wonderful. So before we get started, these are the questions that were shared with the participants. So each are going to answer these questions in their on the slides. So the first person to go is Amy Billone. So let me know when I need to move slides, Amy.
Okay, sure. All right, my name is Amy Billone, and I'm really looking forward to talking to you about the incredible experiences for engagement that I've had in asynchronous teaching, and also just how I've adjusted my methods as time has gone by, as new problems have come up. So Igor, you can change the slide now. I'll go to the next. I find in my cases that what engagement looks like is it involves a lot of collaboration, or a feeling of collaboration between the instructor and the students, between the students and the students, between the students and the instructor, so that everyone is sort of in a state of constant communication and intersection with one another. There's no isolation or loneliness in them. And also, as a result of this, I feel like students end up feeling ideally really happy. So I ran into a student yesterday at an English department, sort of English major party, who had me a year ago. And one of the things she said was that her mother saw the videos, she was watching it at home, and one comment her mother made was that I just seemed so happy in the videos. The mother commented on that. She remembered that I seemed that I radiated happiness in my lectures, and so she had a happy experience in the class. So I feel like happiness and in sort of interaction and engagement go together in my classes. And we can go to the next slide now. I have used a number of different strategies in order to foster student to student and professor to student and so on interaction. And these involve focus questions that I have before every pre-recorded lecture. I have a lot of pre-recorded lectures in my classes, everything uploaded in advance. The focus questions are about what I'm about to talk about in the lecture, and that prepares the students to listen to the lecture in the way I want them to. Then the students go on to write discussion posts after each lecture, and this discussion posts are all public, and I have a model for them for what they're supposed to look like. And then students read all of each other's discussion posts. They post a video reply to one other student. I really do stress that the video replies have to say something complimentary about the student's written post, and they're graded by that. So part of the rubric is they're getting a good grade for positive reinforcement that they give to each other to kind of lift the spirit of the class. So that's another aspect. I say that I will email them back within 24 hours, and I'm always on email with them, which I got an email today from a student saying she already felt welcomed into the class because I was emailing her very late last night in response to some questions. So that's really helped. I believe that there's a lot of in real time, no matter how much work you do in advance setting up the class, there's a lot of in real time attention that you need to give to either planned or just completely unexpected problems that the students might have with technology. And so a lot of that comes through in emails that I get from the students that I respond to immediately, or that I then maybe often broadcast the whole class through announcements, often in advance of the semester, or as the semester goes on, where I'll put an announcement up about a problem people are having and how they might fix it. I'm happy to answer any questions about how I've done that. I have changed my teaching strategy after being evaluated to have one of my classes count as an engaged online learning class, where it was suggested I specify in the syllabus and on the course calendar how frequently and in what way I will use RSI, or regular and substantive interaction with students. So now this semester I have marked for the students that their discussion posts are generally due Tuesdays, their video replies Thursdays, but every Monday night by midnight they will get feedback from me all throughout the semester and grades for what they've done the previous week. And I've also specified that they will get weekly video updates from me every Sunday night by midnight. So now that's built into the class in advance. So there's a regularity to that I know, and that the students know when they'll get that kind of feedback. Also, I'm very open with Zoom office hours. So I spent maybe 3 hours in one Zoom session with a student over my summer class. Another one was 2 hours, but I've already had at least 2 students write asking if they can meet me in office hours next week. And I'm very open with my time with that. I give them every day of the week options. I just believe that being present in real time for them, it really, really helps the students to feel like they're not alone and that they are interconnected. So if we can change slides now, I wanted to just mention some, this is a very just quick slide with a couple of pictures where I try to promote instructor presence in the class. One way I do this is through these weekly update videos that I make them. Now they'll be by midnight every Sunday night, they'll get these. And so you can see on part of the screen from Fairy Tales to Alice update is an example of one that I used in my class last fall. This is a class I teach every semester and in the summers on fantasy to cyberspace. But I give them these weekly updates where I check in on the work they've done all week, questions they have, wonderful things I've seen, so that they feel that the class is happening in real time, even though it's asynchronous. And then another example I have is just a picture of a lecture video where you can see me smiling. I saw another student yesterday who said one thing she liked about my classes was how many props I use. So she remembered the props. So props involved, you can just see a mug in one, or a virtual backgrounds that change, or a great fairy tale tradition is an example of a book that they don't have to read, but that I hold up. So I definitely use props in my thumbnails and in my videos themselves. So that's another example. If we move on to the next slide, I mentioned here, I believe, the challenges in asynchronous classes. And I found really I can highlight 4 challenges I've run into. One is questions that the students have, and the questions are always changing. So it's never static. From semester to semester, there are always new questions the students have. Part of this has to do with the way Canvas changes often. So Canvas right now looks differently from how it looked when I first started. So students often now have trouble figuring out where they can see the video replies to each other. I have that now from the outset of the semester as an announcement explaining where they can see them, but that came up suddenly over the summer where I didn't expect that to be a problem. But they run into different problems, uploading videos, things like that. And so the way that, I will talk about this in a minute, the way that I deal with this, but problems will come up and you need to be on hand to deal with those and know that they will happen in advance. A lot of these involve technical problems where often in my case, where I use a lot of videos, students may have problems uploading their videos. So that's another example of a problems students might have and I need to work through them with. Another is isolation, where students feel that they're in the middle of nowhere and they're talking to no one and no one is listening to them and no one is with them. And if they're having a problem, or if they don't have anyone to reach out to. And so it's easier for them to run into the 4th problem I have listed here is students fall behind, in that they don't have anyone kind of telling them in real time in a classroom to do this or that. And so there are different strategies I use to help students with all 4 of these problems. So I think in the next slide, I go over these, and some of these repeat what I already said, but Igor, if we could switch slides to the next one. How I've now navigated these challenges over time. You can go one slide behind if it's possible. I don't know if it's also go backwards, but yeah, it's just that I have these weekly updates, and the weekly updates often talk about problems the students bring up. I will mention them in the weekly video updates or written updates to explain. Often these updates are not weekly. They always are, but they also can be on an as need basis, a very regular email presence, which already this semester has helped tremendously. I often keep adding explanations to Canvas. So this semester, there are new explanations up there that were never there before about how to post video replies and problems students might run into based on my experience with what's happened in the past. I'm very open to Zoom meetings if they want them. If they seem isolated, I will give those students extra feedback, extra attention so that they know that I'm there for them. And that often helps. I also encourage everything in my classes to happen publicly so that all of the discussion posts they post, everyone sees them, all of the video replies, everyone sees them. They post draft abstracts, everyone sees them and they have to make video replies. They post drafts and everyone sees them. They post trailers and everyone sees them. And so I feel like that kind of way in which everything is public in the class, the final project, they have the option of making it public for extra credit and making supportive video replies to each other for extra credit. But for me, that public dimension to the class produces much more interaction and also security among students. I'm also very understanding about anything to do with setbacks that the students run into with technical problems, and I'll be sure to make sure to give them to be lenient with them in terms of my expectations for grades. So just the final slide is that I have found asynchronous teaching to be, for me, it's the most exciting pedagogical adventure that I've ever experienced. I feel like it allows me and students to experience a degree of happiness and a sense of possibility that we've never known before. And so I cannot express enough how thrilled I am to be able to operate in this exciting new dimension. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy. Do we have any questions or comment for Amy? Yet I can see the chat right now. Let's see. If we don't have any questions, hand it over to Sally, and then we can circle back on the questions later. Sally?
Hi, thank you, Igor, and thank you, Amy. Yes, and a lot of what Amy talked about are experiences that I have had too. So if we can go on to the next slide, Igor, please.
Sure.
So I will start by talking about what engagement looks like. In my classes, I think it's really hard to talk about this sort of general student engagement because it's so different in each person's class. I know Amy's students are going to be engaged with her material a little bit differently from how they're engaged with my material. And even in the writing classes that I teach online, the students are engaged differently from how they're engaged with the lit classes. And I even noticed that in in-person classes, right? There's sometimes when there's great discussions and the students are engaged that way, and then other times where they're actually engaged by just writing notes. So it looks different, I think, throughout the semester. And I see Brian Stevens on here, and I've always thought that like the students in his classes are engaged in a totally different way from how they're engaged in my classes, because his classes are just like so high energy. And I actually had a student who was going from a meeting with me to watch Brian Stevens' YouTube party. Yeah, it just completely different, but I do think it can happen. And so I do. I'm not as good as Amy at creating the student-to-student interaction with all the videos. So I'm trying some new things this year. And if we can move on, I'll talk about some of the stuff that I do in my class. So one of the ways that I just try and foster student engagement is actually not always immediate communication. Like I like the videos and the photos throughout, because I do think that it in some way, and here's a sort of a metaphor, is like they connect with stars and movie icons and idols, even though they don't know them, just because they see their image so much. So in no way am I ever going to be close to a movie icon or idol, but they see me. So they hopefully build some sort of connection with me. I also do require my students to meet with me once on Zoom in small groups, and then they can meet with me as needed. But I do like that initial requirement. I also set up the Zoom Teams chat, which some people I know use Slack, some people use GroupMe. I use the Zoom chat just because everybody already has it and we're all connected through it. So it doesn't mean an extra app. I do try not to answer on the weekends or at late at night, but if it's like a question about submitting something before midnight, I'll jump in, but I do try to set limits around that. And the same with Amy. She mentioned timely email responses. And I do think that in my position as director of the online programming in English, that is one of the biggest complaints we see about online classes, is that they can't, they've emailed their instructor 3 times and haven't heard back. Sometimes, of course, the student expects that to hear back in an hour, but generally I tell them within 24 hours, but give me the weekend. So, and that seems to be really important to the students, that sort of being heard element. On discussion boards, I also require them. That is not so much student to student as student with the content and then student with me. But I do ask the students to reply to another student who's already posted, but mainly so that they can see what the other students have said about the content and hopefully learn a little bit more and something different about the content. And then I jump in and make comments, hey, thanks, that's great, or whatever, to the discussions. I jump in regularly. The students who've already done it don't always come back to read my posts, but the students who come after will read it and will see that I am engaging in the course and that I am actually there. And they may, I'll post another question leading from another student's question, and then they can respond to that. So that does kind of build some sort of engagement in community, and they see that I'm engaged and hopefully feel like that will lead to their engagement. And of course, it's writing, so I lead with a lot of comments and feedback. Igor, next slide, please. Other ways that I do try to get students engaged with the content is embedded quizzes in the lectures. Students have said they like it, actually. I was thinking they probably wouldn't, but they have said that they like it because it helps them to stay focused. I also lock the tasks so that they can't skip around, and they can see their progress. I offer badges too for each week completed, but that I think helps them, that they can see their progress, helps them feel like they're connected with the material. I also have them do discussions where they have to analyze the content, and then I give extra credit sort of here and there, and that hopefully those sort of surprise pop-up extra credits keep them looking at the chat and going back to the announcements. Next slide. Like Amy, the challenges are the isolation and the time management. I think that those are the 2 biggest challenges that I've seen with the asynchronous online classes. And hopefully that the fact that I'm responding quickly to their emails, that I do respond to their discussion posts, we have Q&A discussions in the Zoom chat, that I'm there, helps them at least feel like they're connected with me. I do group work. So they do have some sort of connection, but I am trying to increase that student-to-student connection with more videos, like video responses like Amy does. But what I think are the benefits, and next slide, Igor, please. Some of the benefits that I found in the asynchronous online classes are that students can't really hide. We all know in-person classes, students can sit in the back and not say anything, and they may be engaged, they may be listening, they may be thinking through it, but as an instructor, I don't know. And they may have great things to say, but sometimes I'll call on them, but sometimes you'd be like, I don't want to if they're really, shy or anything like that. So in online classes, they have to post, they have to say something. And so that's nice. It also frees me up to spend more time providing that feedback, that one-on-one feedback on their documents, on meeting with them, on troubleshooting issues and all of that. So there are some, like Amy said, some happy moments, some definite benefits to these online asynchronous classes where I can spend more time. They can't hide, and I can make sure that all the students are interacting with the material, and I'm giving them some feedback to help them move through the content. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Sally. I'm sorry. I was looking at Amy's picture. So up next, Lee Murphy. I don't think there's any question in the chat. So Lee.
Okay, great. Can you hear me okay? Everybody's good?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Great job, Amy and Sally. Thank you for starting us off with some great conversation. So a little bit different. Thank you, Igor. I know some of you are familiar with my course, but many of you are not. And it is it used to be a large lecture course. So I have about 1,800 students this semester, of which the majority, about 1,500 are in my asynchronous online. I do a lecture course with maybe about 200 or 300 that are face-to-face and in this course. And so anyway, so some of my tactics are a little bit different. However, they all are the same when we're talking asynchronous. You know, I think my course works very well in this modality, because if I'm in a large lecture and I'm talking to a few hundred students at once, there's not a lot of back and forth interaction. I wish there was, but you know, no, people don't really want to talk up in that group. So when they're watching my micro lectures, I call, which I'll get to in a minute, in this format, they are kind of interacting the same way that they would there. And then of course they can ask for questions and follow up as needed. So so I say all that to say my course is set up a little bit different, of course, in how we interact. But what you're seeing on your screen now is I have written the textbook that we use in Nutrition 100, and that is what it looks like on the far left. So I kind of like Sally's embedded quizzes and that sort of thing. I have embedded my lectures, which you see in the middle picture. This is 3 different pictures that you're seeing on your screen now. So within the text, I'll just briefly tell you my history. When I first did this, again, like 10 years ago plus, I did my full long lectures recorded, and not surprisingly, no one was watching 90 minutes of me talking in a room by myself, right? So over time, I realized that this would be better employed other manners. So when I re-recorded with the help of communications department and OIT, I called them micro lectures. So when I re-recorded, I did 5 to 7 minute smaller lectures, of which they are embedded in my text. And so kind of YouTube type format, which really works, so that Jason Brown's on here, and he was paramount in helping doing those micro lectures or you can see in the top of that middle picture, we had a set and it was scripted based on my previous one. So it was very professionally done and allowed for this context, so students can watch them. I don't require them to watch the the lectures like you would, when you take a CPR class or some of our continuing education we have as instructors here. You can't flip through the slides without watching the entirety. I know you could do that with your course. I don't, because I know everybody, especially as many students as I have, they learn differently. Some people want to hear every word you say. Some people just want to really read the text, and that's how they learn best. Some people work better engaging. So we kind of allow for all of that with this. So anyway, so my micro lectures are a neat way of, I think, of allowing that interaction and the student to pace themselves and meet where they learn best. The picture on the far right is a project that I do called Diet Tracker, which is a dietary analysis program that they do. The reason I'm picturing this here, and I'll talk about it a little bit more, is that is an individualized project. And I think that's one really neat way in asynchronous courses that you can engage the student is on a personal level. And my discipline, I have them, when comfortable, there's an alternative assignment if they're not comfortable with this assignment. But if they are, which most are, they will keep a food log and record it. And then based on their own food record, they get recommendations for themselves, of which they analyze throughout the semester. So it's very self-applicable and engaging themselves for that assignment. So those are some of the ways that we can kind of target the student to be more interested in what they're learning. Okay, Igor, next slide, please. Thanks. Okay, so I just got 4 examples, kind of like Amy and Sally did, of what I specifically do in my course for engagement. The one in the top left is, as I mentioned, the Diet Tracker is what the dietary analysis program that I created is called. And it has both auto-graded, meaning, the computer grades it, and manually graded. So, the student said they had so many milligrams of vitamin C that they ate in the day. And does that meet recommendations? Yes or no? That's the auto-graded questions. But then a manually graded questions that we grade, myself and my TAs and secondary instructors, is like, can you name 5 foods that are high in vitamin C that you would incorporate into your diet. And so those are ones that we are grading themselves. Again, engaging the student on their personal level, something that they care about in themselves. And moving on to the second project, the upper right-hand corner, they choose a supplement of which they care about. And the reason I'm being so specific to my class is it'd be wonderful if, as I'm talking, you can think about what your discipline is and what you're teaching and how you can have an individualized project that can engage your students in this asynchronous format, because that is paramount to them learning ultimately and caring about the subject matter when they can really, not selfish, but kind of selfish, think about it in their own terms and how they can gain from it and get better from it. So they analyze in my course a supplement and go through some questions. Might be supplement they take, or their roommate takes, or their parent takes, or their best friend takes, or one they've just heard about in the media to see if the research backs it up. I do also, bottom left-hand corner, have discussion boards like you all are familiar with, and that certainly is a learner-to-learner engagement strategy. And of course, we can have feedback from instructor as well. I do like media posts about nutrition, some common new topic that, as we all know for our disciplines, there's always different research coming out. And so this is to kind of get them engaged on something they hear about in the media, that was on the Today Show this morning or something, and to kind of get their feedback of how it applies in their life today, right now, how they can use this material. And then I do also, in the bottom right-hand corner, have auto-graded quizzes and exams, which is helpful in a large lecture course as well, that help the students. And some are timed, some are not. And if some of you might be worried about cheating and that sort of thing for asynchronous, just to be honest with you, right, asynchronous quizzes and exams and online learning, and there are ways and strategies that we can talk about as instructor to instructor, or that Igor and his team can help you with to kind of get around that. But that for me personally, when I first started asynchronous online, that was one of my biggest worries, was sitting beside another person in the class and doing the whole class together, or somehow, when it's not appropriate. Of course, sometimes that is appropriate, but there are certain strategies to work around that really make the class engaging. Okay, Igor, I'm sorry. One more. Thank you. So as Amy suggested, the regular substantive interaction, some strategies. If you haven't looked at information that Igor has, maybe you can post some of the links to Igor for some of that RSI information that is really helpful for people to go through when you're first starting out and trying to figure out if what you're thinking about and setting up is online with interacting in the student engagement that you want. Some of those guidelines really help kind of think on your own level and your own discipline how that will work best. So I just have little examples of in my class. You can think about in your class or your prospective class how that would work. But the learner instructor interaction for my class would be, for instance, when they're watching my micro lectures and or when we interact through discussion, or when they email me, like Amy and Sally talked about emails. I'm probably in the middle between their spectrum of Amy being fully accessible and Sally having some more limits. I'm somewhere in the middle there, I think. But all ways can work, and always, as long as your students know that, right? That's what's important. And I think with asynchronous, it's easy to have more blurred lines. And so just making them aware of what your expectations are is great. Learner content, certainly when they're reading the information or engaging in the material that you're proposing, certainly is helpful. And then learner when they're doing discussion boards or interacting with each other in platforms in that matter. I put large versus small class size on here because as I've said, I obviously have a very large class size, but my tactics would work. I would use the same thing. Actually, I've created a sports nutrition course this past year that is face-to-face, but I use basically the same format for my, it's like 50 students versus several hundred, not super small, but small enough that I use a lot of the same tactics in the small class, and they work perfectly as well in that different setting. So that's, I think, a challenge, but also an opportunity, that a lot of these tactics, doesn't matter the size, it can work great in both ways, and your attention to those students and them feeling attended to can be high in both of those. And then I also just listed, I think if you can think in your mind right now, as a student listening, if you consider yourself that, how you could have some sort of creative assignment for your discipline in the class that you're thinking about teaching, that Amy and Sally have done so well as well. I know Alex has also, he'll talk in a second, but you know, for instance, those micro lectures I talked about was a way that I took the class that wasn't working so well in the past. I mean, it was there, but it was the same material. It's all the same. I just did it in a different way to meet the students' needs, because I know they watch YouTube type clips, and I'm not just giving up on their attention span and saying no one's going to listen for an hour, but at the same time, I want them to watch my material. And if I meet them in the middle and have these smaller bites of information, they're more likely to watch it. And that's my goal, is for them to learn about nutrition, not for them to listen to me talk for 90 minutes all at once. So I think meeting them where they are and how they're going to learn best is so important. And then the unique assignments, the last thing on there is like, you know, for instance, my diet tracker, of course, that's specific to nutrition, but in your own discipline, if you can think about some kind of unique assignment you can do that will engage them in their own minds to care more about your discipline and what you're trying to do, that is will lead in their own engagement to your asynchronous learning. And even though you don't see them every day in the classroom and you're not necessarily talking to them every day, they will take it upon themselves to feel engaged because they care about it, because it applies to them themselves. And again, not selfishly, but it's true that they're going to care more about it if it's going to apply to them and how they can make their lives better from it. So I know I talk fast, and Amy and I both do, right? We love what we do and we're excited about it, and we talk fast because we love it. So anyway, but I'm certainly, before I pass it over to Alex, if anyone wants to pitch ideas or, you know, get some thoughts, feedback or whatever on any discipline, I'd be happy to help in any manner, just to kind of be a student of yours and help in that manner if you'd like. So that's very true. Thank you, David. You do not need, sometimes you do need a double speed, and instructors don't do that to mine.
Just having fun. It's Friday.
Thank you. Okay, so but please, my email, all of our emails are listed, but I'll be happy to help anyone in that manner. So thanks, Igor.
Thanks, Lee. And I just wanted to say that there were a few references made to RSI. And so Dr. Jason Johnston shared a resource that we have on RSI. If you want to know more about it, it's on our website. So I'm going to hand it over now to Alex Feldt.
Thank you, Igor. So I guess I could do the boring thing and just say ditto to everything, because it's kind of like we all have the same core ideas, and then we just have slightly different ways that we work with them. So I want to talk just a little bit about sort of my approach and how I developed the course, and then just highlight a couple examples of some things. So I only teach one class online. The rest of my teaching is all face-to-face, and it's kind of a unique class in my department. It's an upper level philosophy course that has 0 prereqs and is predominantly not filled by philosophy students. And so it creates some challenges that I was a little more worried about when I took it into the online space. And so this course has been online. We've had an online version since, I guess it's now 2019. And so it becomes difficult because I always try to communicate to my students that philosophy at its core is a collaborative enterprise. It's about giving reasons, receiving reasons, evaluating those reasons, and then having a conversation together to try to come to an understanding of the truth. That's sort of the way that I envision, what my discipline does. And in my bioethics class in face-to-face, I would get a lot of the natural sciences students coming in and saying, what do I need to memorize and how do I cram for the exam? And it was like, okay, that's not what we're doing here. And so I've been worried, and I'll talk about this at the very end because it's come up in some ways of how to really promote more of that collaborative versus I'm an individual doing my tasks and I'm kind of going through. And one thing that I'll say is I think that something that came out nicely I saw in the chat is a lot of the engagement, it's also just about management. It's about having things structured and set up and then being able to respond and manage and give feedback as needed. But that also, I think if we're not careful, can really kind of create burnout and stress if we're not sort of giving some of the clarity and boundaries. And so for me, when I think about these three types of engagement, I have things in my class built in that clearly target each of them. And for me, it's the student, and student material that are particularly important, not just because of this idea of philosophy as a collaborative thing where we're all part of a conversation, but those are the things that in some ways I can remove myself from, I can pull back, and that helps with some of that management and boundaries in other things. So, in the instructor student, obviously I've got course lectures that are going on. I do video announcements, video updates. I do video feedback to the course, and I'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second. But in the student, they do discussion boards. They're very structured. I target them. I give them samples so they know you need to be doing this. But I don't get in the discussion board. Now, I do make a feedback video about the discussion board, but I don't get in it because it's their space to do the task that I've given them and have this very targeted conversation. And part of that is making sure that they're always saying, here's something I really liked that you did. Here's a strength of your argument. Here's something I'd like clarified in your argument. Now let me offer an objection. Let me try to push the conversation forward. But it becomes, again, a space for them. I do peer review activities on pre-writes. So it's a narrower focused writing to get them ready to make these broader philosophical arguments. I don't get involved in that. And I tell the students that. I say, look, I'm going to check the worksheets. I'm going to make sure that you got feedback. But I didn't read this. I'm not giving you feedback. I'm happy to talk with you about it. But again, it creates those sort of clear spaces, but it's also a way that I can help me manage the course in a way that's effective. And then, the student material, not just in, hey, you can read, but, I've been adding now things where I highlight, hey, in our ebook, here are the features that you can do. Here are ways you can take notes and highlight. At the end of every module, they're supposed to do reflections where I give them some prompts, but they have the space to reflect as they want, and then they come back. And so I think it's important to kind of think about those different ways. And some assignments include elements of both. Some things will include multiple elements. I also do a collaborative group project. Now, one thing that I will say about that for student engagement that I have found has helped is they do a group project over many weeks. The thing they're predominantly graded on is actually then an individual paper that comes out of it. So basically, they function like an ethics committee and have to go through a process of moral deliberation, but then they individually write a paper, which is, okay, given your conversation, sell it. What's your argument now? And part of that just stemmed from, I got so much of the group work, asynchronous, online, what if someone doesn't do this, and now my grade's on the line. And so it was a way to kind of get a practical, collaborative project and then still try to take away some things that also then gave them that sort of autonomy at the end to put their own spin on it. And so just thinking about things like that. So Igor, if we can go to the next slide, please. So this is my course engagement rubric. It's not here meant to try to read all the tiny little print. It's because I'm doing what I do in my face-to-face classes when I have all my slides, which is they're really for me and my memory aids. And I was lazy and it was easy to screenshot that and throw it on a slide. But basically what I do is I have their course engagement grade is basically almost about half their grade. And it's structured as, these are the stuff I just want you to do. I want you to put in an honest effort, right? You're filling in the matrix, but I then am clear with them that you're not just looking at the video. You need to get involved in the comments on the video, because I embed them with Studio, Canvas Studio, and then tell them you need to get in that conversation. And then that is one place I do interact frequently with them. I engage with them in those conversations and I tell them, this is raising your hand in the classroom. this is getting involved in that, is kind of that opportunity. And then there's, you know, these comprehension checks. They're just quizzes. They're practice quizzes. I'm not involved because they're all preset. They auto grade, but then they get feedback. So students can see my explanations I wrote out. And so again, it's a way that I can manage my time, but still be a presence for them in that way. And then the other thing for me that's really important in this is, even when I'm asking for the engagement, I'm building flexibility. That to get an A, it's not you literally did every single thing. It's maybe you have a busy week. You can't be as involved right now on that conversation. That's okay. And I think that's another important thing for engagement, is making sure that there's also then some flexibility within it. So we can go to the next slide, please, Igor. So this is something I'm going to also talk about as a challenge, but you know, front and center on my landing page is basically, here's how you get in touch with me and how you get updates about the course. And my goal is to be as clear how many different ways there are. One of the things that's been a big help for me is actually the little smaller image that's there. That's my Calendly landing page, or not my landing page for Calendly, but it's one of my scheduling things. So students can go to a landing page, and I do this for all my students, everything. They can go find which class are they in. Do they want to meet me in person, not in person? But it eliminates all the emailing. It eliminates everything. It's a way to just try to break down that wall and say, you find what works. But then this is where I get that sort of balance between Amy and Sally in, I've set super clear boundaries about this, right? Like very, very clear boundaries about what's available, what's not. And the other thing is, I can set limits like you can't schedule an appointment more than X hours, right? And so you've got to plan ahead. You can't sort of be like, I want to meet with you in 6 hours. Not happening, right? And so it's given me that ability. And I think that's really important. I've really also tried to highlight the Zoom chat, but not as the group chats and the channels like Sally was talking about, as you can text me. But then I stress, that doesn't mean I'm going to reply to you at 3 a.m. But it's getting them to kind of recognize, oh, Zoom chat, think of it like text. It's on my phone. It's a way, it's trying to break that barrier down. So we can go to the next slide, Igor. Thank you. So this is a thing that I've really gotten into. So I see in my philosophy class a lot of the same things happening. There's often just confusion on the same core concepts, or everyone is kind of trying to address a tension between maybe two different moral values. And so while I still have rubrics and do individual limited written feedback, because one of my goals is to really turn feedback around quickly, because I think that's important for engagement. And then it's trying to open the conversation. So I'm always telling them my feedback on the rubric and my couple sentences I've written you, that's the start of a conversation. But then for me to be able to still try to do more and walk them through and learn and see, okay, I have this preset stuff. I know what's coming. I see where you're struggling. Let me put my thumb on the scale. I do that through these course-wide videos. And so I do feedback videos on discussion boards and writing assignments. I do framing and advice videos on papers, but I always wait until we're there. I don't use pre-recorded same ones from semester to semester, because I can figure out, okay, this group of students, we're going this way and I need to take them this way. But I can also then talk to them in ways that they know this was not a pre-made video, that they know that I've been listening and that I'm there with them. And so that, I feel like that's been another important thing, is making sure they know that some resources, yes, are preset. Others, I'm with you, I'm listening, I'm present right now in this semester, as opposed to another one. So Igor, if I can get the other slide there. So then for me, I've had a lot of thought about the challenges, because I'm in a period where I'm kind of ready to re-record and redesign. I was about to do that, and then a publisher asked me to review a new book, and I like it way more than what's been paired with my current version. And so I've had to do some more like brainstorming about what I'm going to do. But I've really been tackling these three things, and that is first breaking down the wall of just getting students like to talk to me, right? To break down that screen. That group project, they have to all meet with me at the end of the semester, and they're all like, "Oh, this was a great conversation. And I'm like, "You wish you had talked to me earlier in the semester." And so it's trying to find ways to kind of get through that. And I think part of that is also tackling both student motivation and my own motivation as an instructor. Because a lot of the course is preset, a lot of the course is the same, it's easier for me when things are going poorly. Unlike face-to-face where I'm like, oh, maybe I presented it differently. Maybe I'm doing something different. Like, there are times where it's more of a, I just got a different crop of students, but sometimes that makes me want to be less engaged. And so it's thinking about my motivation and their motivation and making sure to try to influence that. And the thing I'm really struggling with, and it's actually coming up this semester more than I've ever seen, is trying to get students past each thing is just an individual task I'm here to do. And I say that because on my initial discussion board, in the first week, they can't unlock the rest of the course until they post a question. And right now, 50% of the questions have been, can I work ahead and finish the class early? And I've never had that come up in my class before. And I think it's rooted in, well, I just have these tasks I'm supposed to do. But if you have a discussion board, if you have a group project, like you're not seeing what role the things play. And for me, I think that's the biggest challenge. I feel like I'm better in the classroom getting those things kind of together, getting that narrative, getting it working. And I think that's been my difficulty in the asynchronous classroom is how do you get them to see the connections rather than I have a task, I have a task, I have a task, I have a task. And that's the approach. So yeah, that's what I've got.
Thanks, Alex. Do we have any questions or comments? I know there have been a few interactions going on in the chat. Anybody has comments, questions?
I just have a quick comment. Thank you all. That was amazing. And I just want to say, research continues to indicate that there is a real correlation between instructor enthusiasm and student satisfaction. And I think all of you have exhibited that today. And I would love to take any of your classes. And so thank you so much for helping us learn more about how powerful engagement can be in an asynchronous class.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other comments, questions? Just for the record, most of them have been through our Jumpstart program. So although we really, I think our IDs did a good job working with them. I think the energy that they have in the courses really, it's really helped them in being really successful instructors. And I really want to thank all of you for being here today. And a few points I would like to make. Throughout the session, they mentioned assignments, right? And a recurring theme today is AI, right? And so how do we use AI in assignments? And so we have a session coming up on Tuesday from 12 to 12:45. The link will be in the chat, where Dr. Johnston will be talking about how you can rethink your assignments and using AI. And I just wanted to say that. And additionally, we will be having more of these roundtable style of brown bags in the future, in spring. And so if any of you are interested in being part of the roundtables in the spring, please do not hesitate to email me and with ideas or topic. Again, we are open to anybody, to any ideas. I think everybody has my email. Email me. I'm happy to meet with you. And please, you will be hearing from me more frequently this semester. when we send you information about our offerings and you feel like others may be interested, feel free to share those with colleagues, friends in your department. Our hope is that our community continues to grow, and we can't get the community to grow without your help. So I'm asking you here for help in spreading the word. And if you're happy with this session, I hope you come back again in 2 weeks, September 8th, for another session. We still have a few more minutes left. If anybody has comments to make, questions, disagreement, or anything. I can't imagine disagreeing with our session leaders. It's you hear there's a common thread, right? Many of them used video, right, in different forms in the in the courses, and so today I think as of this semester we're probably going to start hosting our BrownBags in our studio. And if you are interested in learning how to create nice looking videos, we're not saying that your video had to be nice, but if you're interested in doing that, learning how to create videos and all that, we are here in the KPB Kingston Pies building. Our multimedia team is here to help you. Again, we have a few more minutes left. 2 minutes left for any closing comments. I still see some comments in the chat. If there are no other comments or questions, I once again want to thank you all for being here today. I hope to see you on Tuesday at noon. Tuesday next week, the session will be led by Dr. Jason Johnston. Otherwise, in 2 weeks for another BrownBag. Thank you all. Thank you, our presenters. We appreciate you. We really appreciate you, and thank you all for spending the Friday at noon with us today. Thank you. I hope you all have a great semester.